Our interview this morning is with Paul W. Bradtmueller. Paul was born in Fort Wayne, Indiana in September of 1959. He served in the United States Marine Corps, active duty 1977 until 1981. His highest rank attained was E5 Sergeant. This interview is conducted at Burleson, Texas on Saturday, September the 10th, 2011. My name is Dale Dexheimer. I'm not related to Paul in any way. Also in the room is Milton Gibson, who is our video guy. This interview is conducted for the Library of Congress, the Veterans History Project, and also for Operation Remember for the city of Burleson, Texas. And with that little intro, Paul, we'll let you tell us your story of your time in the Marine Corps.
Thank you, Dex. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for this opportunity to be part of the projects that Milton and Dex here are performing today. So thank you. My story begins with a young, about to drop out of high school punk who was failing in everything that he was doing and was somewhat taken under the wing by a Marine recruiter. When I walked into the recruiting offices, let me digress a little bit there. I always knew I was going to go into service. Just never did know when. My father was a former infantryman in the Army, so of course all our childhood included a lot of celebrating the battles of World War II in Korea. But back to my story. A Marine gunnery sergeant named Gary Young, a Greek gentleman, just absolutely impressed me when I walked into the recruiter's offices. And there was the Navy office, the Air Force office, the Army, and the Marine Corps. And you had to walk past all the other recruiters to get to the Marines office. All the other recruiters solicited me for, hey, here's a job I can get you, here's a field I can put you in. And I walked into the Marines office and he essentially said, what the hell do you want? Unless you want to be a Marine, turn around and get out of here. So that impressed me right there. So I was hooked right there. But thank you, naivety, for allowing me to be hooked like that. My childhood was very interesting. I had a father who was an alcoholic, was quite absent from the family, and my mother was a nurse who spent a lot of time in the hospital and a lot of time compensating for my father. So troubled youth, and as an old friend of mine, a good Marine colonel, always said, God protects the stupid, and he was very prophetic. He does. So a little story here. When I enlisted, I signed up for aerospace technologies, essentially to maintain aircraft. You had to have a high school diploma in order to get this contract. So I knew my grades were pretty bad in high school. I just didn't know how bad they were until one day I was called into the counselor's office and recognized that my class was only 70 kids in a 200-pupil high school. It's a very small farm town in the Midwest. And there sat my recruiter, the district superintendent, the counselor, and the principal for the high school. And I just knew that couldn't be a good thing walking into that environment. And Gunny addressed him and said, what's up, Gunny? He just looks at me and he says, no stinking diploma, no stinking contract. And I said, what does that mean? And he says, you get to hump a pack and a rifle for 4 years. So that didn't sound too exciting. So the district superintendent and the principal piped up and said, but Paul, we feel that you're going to have a change of life event this summer by going to Marine Corps boot camp. So because of that, we're going to go ahead and graduate you regardless of the fact that you're maybe a credit or two shy and your grades won't make it. So that's what gave me my high school diploma. So that's where it all started. I wasn't some patriotic youth. I wasn't some gung-ho, I want to be a Marine. I was a naive kid out of the Midwest, getting ready to be thrust into something that I just had absolutely no idea what was going to happen. So standing on the footprints in San Diego at about 2:30 in the morning after being up all night, the night before and that night, with a Marine drill instructor introducing me to the Marine Corps. I was wondering just what the heck did I do now? So before going into Marines, a couple of buddies that went in with me, we decided we wanted to see if we could consume all the beer in central Illinois, starting about 6 months before we left for boot camp. And that all caught up with me the next week as we did our initial physical fitness assessments to see if you were physically fit enough to enter the training cycle, or if you had to go to what we called the pork chop platoon and be conditioned to start the training cycle. Luckily, I did not have to go to another term, the fat farm, and started the training cycle and was introduced to a very fine nutrition and fitness program. And it was called half rations front of the line. So my first time through the chow line, I learned a valuable lesson. When you're told to do something, you do it. So I failed to tell the mess hall attendants that I was on half rations and received a full plate of food. Well, the drill instructor, they're very observant, and he decided I needed to exercise during that lunch period instead of eat. So I learned a valuable lesson there right away, that when a drill instructor tells you to do something, you do it. So the beginning of the establishment of discipline within my life. I guess that was kind of the first point in time. So boot camp progressed. I graduated. One of the proudest moments in my life was to walk out of San Diego as a United States Marine. I dropped almost 40 pounds in that and went from just a fat little punk slob to a fit, confident, motivated Marine. Ultimately obtained the contract and the training for aerospace. Went to Memphis, Tennessee, Millington, Naval Air Station Millington, and was assigned to the hydraulics technician training. So I was assigned to fixed wing hydraulics. So this is where my aviation odyssey begins. I was initially trained as a hydraulics technician on fixed wing. Upon completing all my schools in Memphis, I was transferred to El Toro, Marine Corps Air Station El Toro, which is now closed, and went into the training unit there and was transferred down to Camp Pendleton to train on helicopters. So I showed up at Camp Pendleton and was put in hydraulics and flight control school for the AH-1J Cobra. And after completing those schools, I was assigned to a UH-1N Huey squadron to learn how to maintain hydraulics and flight controls on Hueys. So upon completion of that, or during that time period, let me set the stage here a little bit. In the late 70s, it was quite a bit of warm body syndrome. If you could fog a glass, you were allowed to enlist. And quite literally, many of my platoon mates in boot camp were offered a choice of, do you want to go into the service or do you want to go serve your time in another place behind bars with a different set of stripes? Quite a few of them opted to take the route. So there weren't, the quality of recruits, I will say, probably wasn't near as good as what it is now. So I came out of the Midwest, a clean town, no records, no history, just a good clean-cut kid, and was interviewed to be transferred to the President's Helicopter Squadron, HMX-1, located in Quantico, Virginia. And I was accepted in that interview, again, totally and completely naive about what was to happen. So I've been to Memphis to train on fixed-wing aircraft, went to California, trained on Cobras, did my on-the-job training on Hueys, and now went to a squadron that had none of those aircraft. And arrived in April of 1978 at HMX-1, the Presidential Helicopter Squadron in Quantico, Virginia. And there began, during that time, that was, I will call it my epiphany in life. Upon getting there, there are essentially two things that are very contagious in life. Positive and negative attitudes. Both are equally contagious, but the easier route is the negative attitudes. And I kind of got associated with some of the more negative attitudes in the squadron that shouldn't have been associated with. It reflected on my performance, and it reflected on my evaluations, and my behavior reflected that. But I didn't like it. I knew there was more to it than that. And let's just say one day, after partaking in some events that I should not have partaken in, I will call it an epiphany, and I will call it divine intervention, where I stood there before my dresser one day and decided that I was going to change my course in life, and I was going to be something more than what I was. And it's just, I can't explain it any other way than it was just simply divine intervention. So at that point, I began a very rigorous exercise regimen, and I began in earnest to pursue promotions. I began in earnest to pursue more education in the Marines. I let it be known in the squadron that I wanted more than what I was, and I wanted some opportunities. I was afforded the opportunity to attend various schools for the different aircraft that were in the squadron. We had CH-53 Deltas, we had CH-46 Echoes, and the VH-3 Delta, which is currently the same president's helicopter that was in service back in the 70s, is still the same one that our current President Obama flies on now. I attended many of these schools. My performance evaluations began to reflect my new attitude. My appearance changed. Was promoted to corporal. I was transferred to the CH-53 flight line for training as an air crewman. I completed that training regimen. I was afforded the opportunity to train further on the CH-53 and went back to what was Santa Ana, Marine Corps Air Station Santa Ana, which later became Marine Corps Air Station Tustin, which is now also closed. So some relics of the past. Had the opportunity to experience the dirigible hangars at Tustin, which are now national landmarks, which are also featured in quite a few commercials now, I think you'll see. So that was a big highlight. But what this also afforded me was the opportunity to seek and obtain what we call the top secret Yankee White security clearance, which is essentially you're cleared for direct access with the President of the United States and his cabinet and staff and foreign heads of state. And that fall of 1978 became really the beginning of my journey and my success in life. I was promoted to corporal. I was awarded my aircrew wings. I was assigned the responsibility of the technical publications NCO for our hydraulics shop. I was an E4 corporal in charge of the night crew for all the hydraulics maintenance on the aircraft. And I was assigned the responsibility of the safety NCO. I obtained my top secret security clearance, and that provided me the opportunity then to become involved with a multitude of missions supporting the President and all his travels domestically and worldwide. That was just an unbelievable opportunity to take part in that. I worked hard, I studied hard, I signed up for numerous after-hours courses in various subjects, math. I wanted to start building my education up a little bit and start preparing for my desire to attend college after I was discharged. I did have the original GI Bill, which was afforded to me, so I recognized that. And I also had the epiphany that the only thing that separated me from the officers in the squadron was the fact that their discipline and education. And I knew I could achieve that. So numerous college classes, numerous Marine Corps Institute classes I took part in. I was nominated for meritorious promotion to sergeant, and that was probably my crowning achievement in the Marine Corps, in that I was an air crewman on an infantry base. And I had to compete against a multitude of enlisted infantrymen, and was tested their skills were not tested against mine in aviation. My skills as an aviation person were tested against theirs as infantrymen. So I set about studying vigorously for those promotion boards. There were 3 boards: a squadron board, an air facility board, and then a command board. And I passed the squadron board, competing against the infantry guards in the squadron. I competed then at the air station level with just a multitude of talent at the air station level, and ultimately was afforded the opportunity to compete at the command level under a general that later became the Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Al Gray. Let's Brigadier General Gray. Another story on that to come. I taught myself land navigation, how to read maps, how to navigate, and one of the points in the board, the promotion board, was asked to come forward to the table where all the board members were seated and identify the grid coordinates on a map. I taught myself how to do that, so without hesitation, I identified the grid coordinates. I thought the promotion board went well, so that afternoon, I'm a little rest and relaxation off base with some cold beverages. I get a call from the Sergeant Major of our squadron, who was a former infantryman, 30 plus years, just the classic crusty old Marine. And he says, "Corporal Bradtmueller?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he says, "You know how to read a map?" I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Well, you're a sergeant now." He said, he informed me that a few of the infantrymen that participated in that board were able to read the map. And so I achieved a meritorious promotion to sergeant. So in my short term in the Marines, I had become an air crewman. I had qualified as a hydraulics technician on numerous aircraft. I was assigned some significant responsibilities for maintenance inspection, the overseeing of night crew for hydraulics, a group of hydraulics technicians. I was a qualified air crewman, and I was meritoriously promoted to sergeant. So this was just nothing short of an absolute confidence boost. That it just opened up a new world to me that I knew I could succeed in life. I had the tools, and it is with deep gratitude that I thank the Marine Corps for providing me with those tools, for my discipline, for my perseverance, for my persistence, and all the qualities that go with being a Marine, and I take them very seriously even to this day. And my tour in the Marine Corps has given me the foundation that I still carry with me on a daily basis and conduct my life in accordance with that. As a result of that, I have two sons that were Marines. My oldest son, William, is a former Marine with 2 combat tours as an infantryman in Iraq. Is home safely and also going to school in the GI Bill. And my son, Jason, is a sergeant and an air crewman on the V-22 tilt rotor. So I recall in 1980 these brochures being circulated at HMX of this revolutionary aircraft. The rotors and the whole engines could tilt forward and propel this airplane forward, and we all looked at it and said, "You got to be kidding! It's impossible." At that point in time, we did have some Hueys in the squadron, and we had a representative from Bell Helicopter, just an outstanding gentleman, just always presented himself in a very, very professional way. Bell aircraft at that time were considered to be state-of-the-art, the most reliable and dependable aircraft in the military at that point in time, and I was enamored with the product, and I was enamored with the Bell Helicopter representative, and it became my goal at that point that I was going to attain my degree, and I was going to work for Bell Helicopter and be a customer service representative and support the Marine Corps. When I was scheduled to be discharged in June of 1981, I'd enrolled in college and I was accepted at Southern Illinois University into their aviation technologies program, and extended for 2 months. I was discharged in August of 1981, and within less than a month I was enrolled in college full-time. So I moved myself and my wife halfway across the United States in the back of a U-Haul van and bought a place and established myself and began school. So it definitely was a result of what the Marine Corps had given me. So I obtained my degree and was hired by Bell Helicopter in January of 1985 and began my career with Bell Helicopter, and was quickly assigned the responsibility as the Bell Helicopter representative to the squadron that I had served on in active duty, representing the Marine Helicopter Squadron there. So both active duty and with Bell Helicopter, I was afforded the opportunity to travel extensively domestically and worldwide, to the Far East, to Europe, many places all over the world. And it was just an opportunity that never would have happened had that Marine recruiter not told me to get out of the office unless I really wanted to do this. So, it's really a story, I think, of somebody walking into the Marine Corps naive, lacking direction, lacking discipline, lacking purpose, lacking self-esteem, and just a plethora of things. And walking out of the Marine Corps 4 years later as a confident, inspired person with goals, and there was not going to be anything that would stop me from obtaining those goals.
A lot of the things that you have said, Paul, Milton and I have done, I don't know, 80 of these interviews. Your episode with the recruiter, we've heard that story a number of times, really, that, yeah, really I wanted to go see, I wanted to be in this branch, but I had to walk by this recruiter, and I never made it to the branch I wanted to go in. You hear a lot of those recruiters were pretty slick guys.
Absolutely.
Overall, it's just an outstanding success story. Just what the Corps has done for you, really. And obviously you did a lot of good things for the Corps. Married. You got married while you were in the service?
Yes, I met my wife in Virginia. We were married in Virginia. In fact, we were married at the chapel at Quantico, and I was married in my dress blues. And that was just a great occasion. Still married 31 years later to a beautiful wife who's stood by me in all my travels and all the sacrifices, and has made sacrifices too.
She was military associated, or?
No, she was from Fredericksburg, Virginia, which
Okay.
is about 20 miles south of Quantico. And met on a blind date, and the rest is history.
We go back, how long was your boot camp?
Boot camp was 3 months, exactly.
Including the time that you were in the chop school, pork chop?
I left that part out, so I'll go back and expand a little bit more on the, if you weren't physically fit enough to begin the training regimen, you were assigned to the pork chop platoon, which meant you were going to spend at least a month extra at boot camp, and all your daily regimen was all based on exercise. I wasn't sent there. However, I was tasked with writing the words "fat body" on the front of all my PT uniforms. PT meaning physical training. And every time we did a platoon run or company run or battalion run, there was always fat bodies to the front to make sure that we didn't fall down or stop running. So we had, so if you were a fat body in front of the platoon and you had 60 guys behind you that were going to pay dearly if you fell out, they were highly motivated to make sure you didn't fall out. And you were highly motivated to not fall out based on the fear of what they were going to do to you for causing them pain. And it also required that in the chow hall we had to declare we were fat bodies, which was obvious from what was written on the front of our PT gear, and receive half rations, which meant we essentially got a half a spoonful of everything. In fact, it's a weight loss program that is guaranteed to work.
You think the Corps still does that?
Absolutely.
They do? Okay.
Absolutely. My brother is also a former Marine. While he didn't experience the same thing, he went in quite a few years later than I did, and both my sons have reported back to me that it still happens. In fact, reading recently, it's actually a dilemma now for the military, in that so many people now are attempting to enlist and are so out of shape because of the obesity epidemic that it cost a lot of time and money just to prepare someone to enter into the training regimen. But I do have to say that it was highly successful, and that when we first got to boot camp, of course, all of our civilian clothes and everything we had on us were confiscated and placed in storage on the base, and were returned to us about 3 days before we graduated. So when I showed up there, I would say very husky and plump. And when I get my civilian clothes back and I put my trousers on, they immediately went straight to the floor. So, but that was great. I mean, it also established in me a discipline with respect to physical fitness that I still carry with me to this day. That I still exercise vigorously on a regular basis and watch what I eat. And as a consequence, I'm 52 years old and in perfect health. Of course, there's no guarantees that there won't be anything else that will come up, but it's just a good sound and a good way to live and take care of yourself. There was a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt one time where she was her observation of Marines, and their son was a Marine in World War II. It was actually a Marine Raider who was very influential in the establishment of the Marine Raider units in World War II. And Eleanor Roosevelt's, the First Lady's observations, and I can't quote them specifically, I don't recall them specifically, but her observation was that they had the dirtiest minds but the cleanest and most fit bodies of all the people out there. And I think Mrs. Roosevelt was very accurate in that assessment. But the camaraderie, the brotherhood of the Marine Corps is just unbelievable. When recently I was on travel to Philadelphia with my job, and I was at the airport awaiting the shuttle to the rental cars, and a long parade of motorcyclists were pulling into the arrival part, and all of these motorcyclists were obviously former Marines, some still active duty Marines, and were displaying it proudly with their flags and various tattoos and patches and emblems on their riding gear. And they were there to welcome home a Lance Corporal who was just coming back from his tour in Afghanistan. And I don't put down the other services, but I do have to say it's just a different feeling when you see that many Marines who have long been discharged, long been retired, will go out of their way to welcome home a Marine that is 20 years their younger, who's still carrying on the fine traditions of the Marine Corps. And we go back to what I do now, what I did for 27 years with Bell Helicopter, 26 years. I started off as a customer service representative supporting the Marines, and that afforded me an outstanding opportunity to really know what the customer is all about. The ultimate customer being the Navy and the Marine Corps with Bell's products. After coming back off site, I went into program management and was the program manager for all of the support products development for the Air Force Special Operations Tilt Rotor Project, the CV-22. That afforded me a lot of opportunities to interface directly with various senior level officials in the government and the military, and later went on to be the engineering lead for all the support equipment development, acquisition, and fielding for the V-22 program for Bell Helicopter. So all of these positions with Bell required confidence. They required poise, and it required discipline, and it required a lot of work to know what you're doing and to communicate and do what needs to be done to get to the customer what they need to get their job done. And I've recently retired from Bell Helicopter and have taken a position in sales with a company out of St. Louis, Missouri, an aerospace manufacturing firm, a small family-owned business that in their desire to hire me pointed out the characteristics that they were looking for, all of which all have roots with my beginnings in the Marine Corps.
Couple quick questions here. CH-53, Chinook?
Nope. CH-53 is the Sea Stallion.
Okay.
It's a Sikorsky product.
Okay.
It's a twin engine. The helicopter, the C-53 Delta, is a twin engine. Sikorsky single main rotor, tail rotor, C-stack.
A lot of air-sea rescue stuff.
No, the SH-3, the H-3
Okay.
Sikorsky was for years and years the primary search and rescue aircraft, which has been replaced by the UH-60. The 53 is a heavy lift cargo helicopter that used to transport troops, supplies, external various whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Just hauled about it. If we could hook it up or get it in the back, we hauled it to wherever it needed to be hauled. If it was troops, if it was guns, bullets, butter. I even had the opportunity as an active duty in HMX during the Carter administration when the Chinese military sent a delegation to the United States to tour military bases on the East Coast. My aircraft was assigned that mission to transport these Chinese generals to various locations along the East Coast. And what an experience that was. Probably my best part of that was I was actually taller, the tallest person in the back of the helicopter at that time. I'm not a very tall person. But it was very interesting in that their generals, everybody in the back of the helicopter had the same uniform on. And there were no visual distinctions in rank.
Really? Oh, big.
And they were extremely curious to the point that they were attempting to open various panels and access points on the helicopter and would come up to me and open pockets and patches, and just their curiosity was just unbelievable.
Wow.
Also had the opportunity to transport the vice president, and
I was going to ask that question. You ever meet any presidents?
when, of course, I was active duty during the Carter administration and the very first part of the Reagan administration, and numerous times went to Plains, Georgia, and transporting President Carter down there. We would actually land in a little softball field there at Plains, Georgia. It would be two H-3s and a 53. The 53, the cargo helicopter, we transported all of the press. We transported aides, staff, baggage, White House communications. We put all just ass and trash. That's what we hauled. So, but quite a few famous press people, Sam Donaldson, those types were constantly in the back of my helicopter. And so it was a privilege and an experience to see that. But in the zones, when we would land, it was very informal. I mean, President Carter was home. We would walk around and thank the air crew. And so, yes, I had an opportunity to meet President Carter. Actually had an opportunity to meet President Reagan while working with Bell Helicopter with the President's Helicopter Squadron. The officers and staff of the squadron were treated annually to a Christmas party at the White House. And the civilians that supported the operations were also invited. So I had occasion to meet the President at the White House and attend Christmas parties at the White House. Also supported the first President Bush while as a civilian with HMX-1 and transported him many times. Did not have the opportunity to meet him, but I did have the opportunity to meet President Reagan. It was after he was elected, before his inauguration. We sent a detachment of helicopters to California to support President Reagan in his travels in Southern California as he prepared for the inauguration and to take over as the president. So we based out of Camp Pendleton, and we supported President Reagan in all his travels to Santa Barbara and up on the mountain, and had plenty of opportunities to meet the president and do that. And my son also served in the same squadron as a crew chief on the H-3s that you see on television. So when you saw the president come down the steps and you saw the Marine salute, that was my son on occasion.
Wow.
Doing that.
All right. Southern Illinois, Carbondale, I think.
Yes.
What is a Saluki?
A Saluki is an Egyptian dog, a hunting dog.
And the mascot at Southern
It's
Illinois.
the mascot
right?
of the Southern Illinois.
Okay.
Yes.
One last question. Worked on tilt rotors toward the end. Ever ride in one?
No, I didn't. In fact, after my tour with Bell, working with the Marines, the helicopters, the VH-1 and the presidential Hueys. A lot of people don't realize that there was a presidential Huey that we used for all the worldwide activity. We would take them up to Andrews Air Force Base, break them down, put them on a C-5, fly them all over the world. They do that now with the H-60s. So after that, I went and spent 4 years working at the Boeing facility in Philadelphia in the initial V-22 flight testing.